And we're live.
Yes, we are. We're live.
Welcome to our webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about installation tips for outdoor radiant heating. But let's introduce who we are. Scotty?
I'm Scott from Warmly Yours, and this is
Julia Billen. I'm the owner, president, and chief bottle washer here at Warmly Yours.
So thanks for joining us, everybody.
Great. That was a lovely intro. Let's talk about the main thing, which is this is all about you. We're live. We're here to answer your questions. We really do have an expert here. He's seen it all, done it all. So this is the perfect time to ask your questions. And right there is how you do it. Ask a question. We're going to be talking about a lot of things today. It's kind of like our entire collection. It's the first time we do this, so I'm kind of excited about that. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm excited because it's cold out, at least if you're watching this live, and we're in the Midwest.
Yeah.
So it's really cold here, and it's a perfect time to talk about what you run up against when it's cold.
So we're going to be talking about all of our outdoor solutions. That's Snowmelt, de-icing, even some pipe tracing. So did I get that right?
Anything that's cold and can freeze, we don't want to freeze. We're going to talk about it.
All right. Now, let's talk about the fact that there are three options here. So we have products that do snow melting. These are more cable products that are either just rolled around a wheel, if you will. How do you categorize that?
The snow melting is for where you're going to be driving or walking.
Good.
And it's a product that gets embedded into the surface.
And we'll talk more about how to embed that, but it actually comes in a couple of forms. It comes in cable, around a wheel to install. What do you call that wheel?
A spool.
A spool. Thanks. And then also it comes on a mesh. So we have those types of products. And then we have roof and gutter, which is usually like a linear cable that heats up.
And it comes in a spool also, as you can see here.
Yeah.
So that's for roof and gutter. And then there's pipe freeze protection. So it's the idea of getting the areas where you're going to drive and where you're going to walk. You want those clear. And it's also about making sure that the melting water on your roof has a place to get down to the ground. That's the most important thing about roof and gutter de-icing, is getting that water from your roof to keep it from going up under your shingles and into your house. You want to get that water off and down and out onto the ground.
Like it.
And then the pipe freeze protection is actually keeping pipes that may get in an area that's really cold.
Yeah.
That keeps them from freezing
And bursting.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's the issue. So 3 product lines, 3 different cable types. They do have a lot in common. And we're going to walk you guys through that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I like it. So we'll start with Snowmelt.
Perfect place to start.
This is the growing product line for us. There is a lot of buzz around Snowmelt and de-icing. I think part of it is related to the baby boomers. A lot of folks just don't want to, or it's actually not safe to get out there, shovel snow, be on slippery asphalt, concrete sidewalks, things like that. So very much a growing product line.
Right.
Lots of awareness, lots of interest.
And all it takes is a bad winter or two.
Yeah.
Getting to the age where you don't want to shovel anymore.
Right.
Or somebody has fallen or something like that. So it's great to get this type of system embedded into these areas. And then those areas after that will be dry. You won't have to shovel them, and they'll be much safer to go over.
And here's what I was trying to talk about. It's available in cable and mat formats. We decide for you. You don't have to worry about that. That's part of doing business with Radiant experts. We've been doing this 20 years for floor heating. We've been doing this 15 years for Snowmelt and de-icing. So we really can walk you through what's the best product for you. And we do that in a variety of ways. We can do that over the phone. We can do that with plans. We even have a technical consulting service where we can talk with your contractors and help to put the plan in place.
Yeah, all the electrical wiring that has to be done, that can all be discussed in advance. So it takes all the mystery out of it.
All right, so that's the snow melting systems. Let's get down to the controls. I think this is the most interesting part.
Yeah, there's a lot of control things here,
Right.
Ranging from purely automatic to completely manual.
Yes.
Also, controls that let you do different zones at a time. If you don't have enough power to do one big installation, you can split it in 2. So it comes on one, it goes off, then goes on to the other, it goes off, and just goes back and forth like that. until the whole area is melted. That's the power modulator. And then there's different price points that you can pick, from complete and total automation down to manual.
Yeah, so if you want to just keep it simple, you can do manual. The latest control that we've brought on is that Wi-Fi control that you see there in the lower left. That's just because people really want to have that Wi-Fi capability. They want to be in their homes. They want to be able to kind of use their phone to have the system turn on and off. And so that's as a result of you guys telling us exactly what you want. So we love that feedback.
And the good thing about it is you don't have to worry about, oh, what happens if I lose my Wi-Fi signal? Fortunately, you can just manually turn it on and manually turn it off if you have to. So that's what's so great about that control, is it actually does give you the ability to turn it on your way home and go, oh, I'm going to turn on my system now. By the time I get home, hopefully it'll be melted a little bit. Or I'm just going to, if I don't have any Wi-Fi, just go downstairs wherever this box is and just turn it off.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that integrate the Wi-Fi control with IFTTT, if this, then that type of software. And then, you know, that based on the weather data, you know, it can automatically be programmed to turn on and off. So really some advancements in terms of just using technology for these controls, which is very exciting to see.
Yeah, and a lot of these controls use a sensor which tells it that it's getting snowed on and then it's below a certain temperature. We'll talk about that in just a little bit.
Yeah, and again, a lot of options here, but we can help you choose which is best for your application.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's talk about the most popular application, heated driveways. I actually have this in my very own home. And we've talked about the fact that there's a safety issue there. It saves you time and trouble as well with having to salt. Salt is not so great for
animals or
anyone,
for the plants next to it.
Yeah, or even for the asphalt. So you know, we definitely recommend that instead of salt. We definitely recommend that instead of plowing. I have and had a plowing service now, but after the plow was done and gone, there was still that ice.
Yep,
right
snow
there.
gets smashed down into the driveway, and then you still have a frozen surface there.
And then again, we're in Illinois, so it would continue to snow and it would continue to pile back up. So so we definitely think that the Snowmelt and de-icing is the solution for that, from a variety of for a variety of reasons. These are embedded products, so you do need to be redoing your driveway or walkway. There is the ability to retrofit these, though. Talk about that, Scott, because we just recently started doing that. Again, I did that in my own home. It's kind of our test area.
Yeah, if there's an area that you want to heat in your driveway and you've already put a new surface down, you can simply find that area that you want to heat now, and you can put the cable in there a couple different ways and embed that into and put a new surface over the top, or cut grooves into it and put it down in the grooves. There's a couple different ways of doing it, but it lets you get that specific area, be it tire tracks or an area right by the door or right in front. You can get that in there. So that's what we call retrofitting.
And we recommend that for specific surfaces. I know that it works well with asphalt. I did it in my home with asphalt, but pavers?
No, but concrete. Concrete's good.
You could do that, although there would be some difference in coloration between the two. And that's true for asphalt as well.
Right.
So you just have to take that into consideration. But heated driveways, very popular, lots of interest. Two ways to do it: tire tracks, full coverage. You can do it as you're putting in a new driveway, or you can retrofit it. Is that a good summary?
Yeah. The thing is that people, not everybody's an expert, right? So we get people who go, I'm interested in heating my driveway, and they give us the dimensions of the driveway and they say, I want to heat every square inch of it.
Yeah.
Well, in many cases, there's no need to heat every square inch of it. The most important thing is to get the car back and forth.
Get it out of the driveway.
Yeah. And that leads us to a question we had from Angelo. And Angelo said, hey, what's the best option for a long, steep driveway?
Okay.
Well, for a long, steep driveway, notice the main word is long. The longer it is and the wider it is, the more amps it takes. So what you want to do, the more electricity it's going to take. So the idea there, Angelo, is for long driveways is to get the heat where the wheels are.
Okay.
That's what we call tire track. And then that way it allow you to get in and out. Now, if your driveway is so incredibly long then maybe you want to get it down by the road for the last 40 feet before you get to the road to make sure that you can stop before you get there, especially if you're going downhill.
I didn't even think about that.
So there are different areas where you, we have people that live at the top of a hill, and they want to make sure the last 40 or 50 feet of their driveway right before it gets to the road is dry for their wheels. So they will do not the entire driveway, but they'll do the area right in front of the road so they don't slide out into traffic.
Interesting. So I never thought about this, but you could actually even do the beginning, skip the middle, and the end.
Correct.
And again, we can walk you through, especially someone like Scott with his knowledge, we can walk you through those applications. The first thing we always want to know is, what amp service do you have available? How many
do you have
watts?
any breakers left at all?
You're right.
Yeah. If you don't have any breakers, you're not going to be putting this in. So that's always a good question to ask.
Okay, let's move on to our next slide. You're going to see this repeated with all of our products, whether it's indoor or outdoor. The first thing Scott always wants you to do is test your system. Why is that, Scott? What do you do for a living?
Because the last thing you ever want to do is put something that got damaged under a layer of concrete or under a layer of asphalt.
Right.
It's expensive enough to get the asphalt or the concrete there. The last thing you want to do is rip all that up and find the bad spot and then, reinstall it again.
So test it now. Don't test Christmas morning and then call the tech support line, because Scott will just not be happy.
I'll answer the call. I always get a call during Easter and always get a call during Christmas dinner.
Oh my
So
goodness.
those are the things that let me get away from the table.
So that's funny. So test your system in advance. We recommend before, during, and after install. With Snowmelt, you are going to need a mega meter, but I would assume any electrician worth their salt would have something like that.
Yeah, and what that is, that mega ohm meter, what it does is it actually tests the insulation between the electrical carrying parts and the ground.
Okay.
So it tests the separation to make sure that they're good. So that's what we're showing on this picture. That's a mega ohm meter. It's saying that the insulation layer between the red wire there and the yellow or is good, and the insulation between the red and the black is not good, because that's your current carrying. So you want a connection there, but you don't want a current connection between the red to yellow or the black to yellow.
And these are color coded based on 120 versus 240 volt.
Right.
Plenty of instructions on how to do that, but please test the system.
All the time.
All the time. All right. Now, as we get some very specific questions about Snowmelt, one of the concerns is, when does it turn on? When does it turn off? Will I still have an icy driveway? Why don't you talk us through the runtime?
Well, what it is the system runtime is the amount of time it's got a sensor out there, right? And that sensor, it notices if it's getting snowed on, and it also notices what the temperature of the air is.
Okay.
So if it's below 38 degrees and it's getting wet on the top, it's saying, hey, we have a situation now that may turn to ice or to snow. So I want to turn the system on now. And it will run until it stops snowing or stops raining, or until the temperature goes above 38.
Nice.
At that point, it'll turn off because there's no need for it to be on. So that's how you can have a system that doesn't just pop on in the middle of summer.
Okay.
People go, hey, do I need to turn the breakers off? Do I need it? No, you don't really need to do that, because it needs
it's never going to go
wet.
below 38 degrees.
Right. It needs to be wet and 38 degrees or less for it to kick on.
Okay.
So the good thing about some of our other controls, it will let you pick that temperature if you want it to do 36, you want it to do 35,
32,
or whatever you want it to
right.
do. The idea there is you do not want to have it below freezing, because you don't want it to start freezing first and then start
because the
heating.
system would have to catch up with that first, and then mitigate whatever else is coming.
Right. Now, if you have a manual control, the best thing is, it says, if you get your weather app and it says you will be getting snow in 10 minutes, and it looks like it's going to be a big snow, just go ahead and turn it on in advance. And that allows it to start heating up in advance.
Yeah.
So that allows more of the snow as it falls to actually melt as it falls.
And that's a good point that you make. Not all of the controls have the sensors.
Right.
And there are different types of sensors. Do you want to talk about that very quickly?
Well, the sensor, the most important thing to take away about this sensor is that it's always talking to the control. And it's going to go, okay, control, nothing's happening now, don't do anything. But okay, it's wet, it's snowing, or it's raining, and it's below 38 degrees, you need to turn on, because we need to start heating this up.
Okay.
Now, if you live in a house and one of you is at home all the time, if you're retired or whatever, or somebody's always going to be home, then there's no really need for that automatic thing. You can just buy a timer. It's a lot less expensive, and you can just simply turn a timer on, and then if it's not melted all the way, you go and turn it on for a little bit longer. If you're always going to be home, that's a real inexpensive way to
It
get
really
into
is.
snow melting.
That's
However,
smart.
if you're going to be away, if you work every day, everybody in your family works, it's a good thing to have an automatic control, because then you can come home and your driveway's empty
Love
of
that.
snow.
Yeah. Good tip. Thanks.
So that's run time. That's the amount of time that it's actually getting wet on the top and
Mhm.
actually being below 38 degrees.
Okay.
And the reason why I talk about that is because the system has a runtime and then it has an after runtime.
I was going to ask about that, because that is another thing that people say is like, okay, well, it melts it, but then I'm going to have a pool of water, which will turn to ice, and I'm going to slip anyway.
That's where the after run goes, because now as soon as one of those things is missing, as soon as the snow is missing, the system will continue to heat for the number of hours that you set it to. Most of them are 6 to 8 hours.
Okay.
And it will then, once it stops seeing that, it will then still go, okay, we're in after runtime now. System runtime is over. The sensor has told us it's done. So now we're going to run for 8 hours to make sure that all the snow gets melted, all the water gets evaporated, and you have a nice driveway.
So let me ask you this. If I don't have the sensor, let's say I have a manual timer, could I just simply set it for 6 to 8 hours each time to just make sure I get that window?
What I do is I suggest to people, if you want to make sure, you turn it to the maximum.
Yeah.
And then once it gets melted and dried, you just turn it off.
Okay.
Because that way you, if it really needs 8 hours and you set it to 5 and you walk away,
Yeah, I get
you're
it.
really not done. You're really not done. So set it to maximum. Then once it gets done, you just turn it off. It's like one of those jacuzzi timers. You can just physically turn it to 0 and go ding, and it'll turn everything off.
I like the ding.
I like it too.
All right, let's move on. So we were just talking about that ice buildup. Is there anything else you want?
Well, this
to
is the
kinda
hold
add?
on.
Okay.
We talked about the hold on, or that's the after run. Those are two of the same thing.
Okay.
So the hold on feature and after run feature is the same thing. That's where it keeps running until it eliminates that black ice and the compacted snow.
Okay. Anything else you want to add? I think we went through this one fairly well. So let's talk about the actual install.
Okay.
Now, are we going to, I see you're talking about an asphalt install here. Are we going to go over concrete and pavers as well?
Yes.
Okay, so introduce this one for me.
This is a driveway that happens to be at her house. And we went out there and we put this as a brand new installation. Actually, this is gravel on up. So,
I extended my driveway.
Yeah, there were trees and everything here. So the trees have been removed. We went out there. We got the people to put the base in. I think we have a drawing of that. So I don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of it now. But really, what there is there's gravel. There's a layer of asphalt that was laid down, and we're doing a tire track here. So the mats are put over the base coat, and then as we roll them out, we cover them manually by hand and wheelbarrow or by dump.
And the reason for that is because that's an electrical cable, so we have to be careful about not having heavy machinery running over that electric cable.
Yeah, and once it's completely covered, then you can run a steam roller over the top of that to compact it. So the paving machine is not, you don't want those great big paving machines going, no.
Yeah, I've seen those.
That's what put this section down.
Okay.
So you can use that machine to put the base layer.
Okay.
Then you lay these mats out, and then you can then do this top part by hand.
Nice. Okay. All right. Excellent. Let's look at how the great thing about this is we actually do the plan for you. You can send us in a drawing of your driveway or the area. You can do a hand sketch. You can even sometimes people will send us from Google Earth or maps. They'll send an overhead shot, and that always helps to actually see the layout of the land.
Yeah, and then you can see that this is what we've done here. Is this area here is actually shown on the master area in this area right here. Okay. So this is what the driveway looked like, and now this is the proposed new area and how it fits in.
Right. So
what we did is we got the measurements of this length, and then we had it designed to fit in this particular space. Now, if you look, you have 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are two of the same roll, a different size roll and a different size roll. And these are called out right here on the plan. So it tells you which one goes where. It tells you how many amps it is. It tells you what the ohm reading should be. It tells you how long the cold lead is. And if you notice, we started these, there's a triangle in each one of these start points, and that's the start point. And over here at the ends, we have squares. That's the ends.
Okay.
So if you notice, we've put all the start points in one place.
Oh, okay.
Because that's where the cold leads are then going to run over here and go into a junction box.
So at the end of the cable or the roll, whichever you have, there is a return power lead. There's a junction from the heated area to a cold lead, cold because it doesn't heat up. And those are the leads that go over to a junction box. They get wired to the control.
Right. And then that's gets attached to the power coming from the house.
And the cool thing is we will do this plan for you. We just need some dimensions, a general idea of your coverage area. We do the plan for you. The other thing that we always include is how the energy usage and energy operation.
Right.
So as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, we talk about the operating costs. This layout, these 4 rows collectively, the operating cost is going to be based on the national average is going to be $1.20 per hour. And we like to include that because it's one of the things that most people kind of balk at. Well, how much is this going to cost me to operate? And if you're operating it for 6 to 8 hours, as you can see, and this is a fairly long driveway, it's $1 an hour on average.
And it usually ends up being a little bit less than paying somebody to come out and plow it for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's also good about these plans is it tells your electricians how many breakers you need, what kind of power they're going to need to supply. So once you get this plan from us, you just give this to the electrician. You go, here, it says I need this many breakers. Okay, done. We'll get that taken care of.
And if you don't have that available, again, you can have a different type of control that will zone in different areas. So I could activate zone 1 and then turn that off, activate zone 2, turn it off, and just switch between back and forth between these zones. So, but key is get the electricians buy-in if you can. Then what we do is we work to figure out, can we reduce coverage? Can we just turn one or the other on and off? So there are ways to get around it.
Yeah, and this isn't rocket science. So we run up against electricians who've never ever done this, and it's just an electrician running pipe and hooking things up. It's really not rocket science to them. It's just getting them to go, I've never done this before. Okay, well, it's really not that hard though.
Call WarmlyYours.
Call us and
we'll walk you through it.
Yeah,
easy enough. So we do the plan for you. That plan is very important. So, and tell them why it's so important.
Because we know then if there's ever a problem with your system, we know which roll is where. We know what the amps are supposed to be. We compare them to what you're getting now. We know what the mega ohm reading is supposed to be. All that stuff is a record for us to look at and compare it to what you have at that particular point. And these can be repaired. If something does go wrong, I've gone out and repaired this product multiple times under Asphalt. It can be done. It's all you need to do is find the spot that's bad. We have the tools to do that.
Yeah.
And then we pick that area up, we make our repair, and then cover it back up again.
Yeah. So always have a plan. And that's why WarmlyYours, as the owner, it's very important to me, not just that every sale has a plan, but every quote has a plan, because that's a tool that you can use with yourself or with your homeowner to really talk about coverage and to really talk about, this is how much it's going to cost to operate. This is the amount of the number of amps you need. So really making sure that there is a plan.
Right. And the one thing that a lot of people that are putting this into a new driveway, just a word of warning when it comes to thinking about money, no one really ever thinks about how much does it cost to get the old materials out.
Oh.
So that's something that you want to think about too. What are
the old materials?
The old materials is the old asphalt, is the old concrete.
Okay.
If you're doing a redo, not brand new, but in the case of this, there were a bunch of trees that were taken up here.
Yeah.
So you need to think about that. But if you're taking out an existing driveway and putting a new one in, don't forget about asking how much it costs to take the old stuff out.
Good tip. All right. Now you kind of talked about this, but we always like to do a cross section. This is really great for the folks installing, kind of shows them layer by layer what needs to be done. So you talked about this before where you said, okay, well, this was a new install. So we started with that compacted gravel.
Right. And all you really need to do is give this drawing to any asphalt contractor, even whether they've done this installation or not. Yeah. And it shows them how incredibly easy it is to do. And that simply you're doing an installation like you would normally. But what's required with this asphalt application is that you need 2 layers.
Yes.
Some contractors only want to do 1 3-inch layer.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to save money or do whatever. What is required here to do it correctly is to get that base coat down, get your gravel down like you would for any other job. Then you get the base coat down, then that point it gets rollered, and then you can start putting these mats on top of that.
Based on the plan.
Right.
Based
And
on
then
the plan.
once that's installed, you then hand shovel the top layer on, and then it can be compacted again. So really, an asphalt person knows these steps, 1, 2, and 3. All you're doing is letting them know there's going to be a sandwich made.
Right.
That's how simple it is.
And sometimes the person installing that could be the asphalt person or the landscape contractor. It also could be the electrician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Concrete is a little bit different than asphalt.
Concrete is actually put on a rebar of some sort
Right.
and propped up into the middle of the pour. And actually the concrete just pours right through the cables, right through the mesh into the forms. So you can simply do it in 2 ways. You can put a 2-inch layer of concrete, then take mats and lay them on top, and then pour 2 more inches on top.
Okay.
Or what most people do, which is the fastest, is they will attach these to the rebar.
And is this what we're looking at here?
Yeah. And then what happens is we have a diagram, a cut diagram of this too.
Nice.
But what that does is you need to prop it up. You just you don't put it on the rebar and then let it sit at the bottom. You prop it up into the middle of the pour, which would be about 2 inches.
So are you using the rebar to prop it?
You're using pieces of concrete or concrete chairs or top hats or whatever they're called in your area to prop that up. And then the concrete pours right through. And then you automatically have your cable halfway up. So the concrete just pours through until it comes up to 4 inches, and then you're done. So
that would be considered a one-step process.
yes. And in the one-step process, the only thing you have to do to tell your installer is that you need sub 3/4 inch aggregate, because the 3/4 inch aggregate is going to fit through the 1 1/4 holes that are on the rolls.
Now, do we say that in our install manual?
Yes.
Okay, good. Read the manual or call Scott.
Yeah. And it says it in the video too. We've got a great video that shows this particular installation. So it's very, very helpful. So let's take it.
And just real quick, I see those zip ties right there. So is that an important part of the process?
Yes, that's what keeps them spaced evenly. So you always want to make sure they're, whatever it's 3 inches or 3.5 or 4, or whatever your particular spacing is, that's what holds them in place.
And we will let you know the spacing based on
your geographical area. Some areas require more watts per square foot than others do.
Perfect. And that goes to the next slide where we actually show you the spacing. So you want to talk through it, or shall I?
This is once again just the same information is on this particular plan. You've got all the stuff we talked about already.
So this is 81 cents an hour to operate. It shows you exactly the number of breakers you need, as you were pointing out. Great information. That's why you need a plan. And then here you've got it even color coded. So we try and make it as simple as possible to understand that there's more than one roll here for this particular. And then, we number them, and there is an indication of where to put the junction box.
Right. The junction box is going to determine where each one of these rolls start.
Yeah, and I see 1, 2, and 3. All those starts are right there.
The cold leads are 20 feet long. They can get into that junction box. If your junction box would be over here, everything would be a mirror image. This would all start over here instead.
Yeah.
So this is where you need to tell us, when you're giving us this drawing, is mark where your power is available.
Right.
And then the drawing will be done from that.
And then the other thing is, this is the roll product. So the really great thing about that is the spacing is already predetermined. You don't have to do the zip ties. It's already it's a heating element. It's on a fiberglass mesh, and the spacing is already preset.
Yeah. And that's why you see a gap here. There's a 3-inch gap between each run. That's what that space is. So the wire is always 3 inches away from another wire on this product.
So that's perfect. Anything else you want to talk about for this?
No, but
this is a full coverage. We talked about
coverage.
tire tracks before, but this shows you more of a full coverage. And then the cross section.
Yeah. And this is how it's installed. There's that compacted gravel we talked about. That's what that layer is. These concrete blocks should be about 2 inches high.
That's what I couldn't picture. Okay, good. This helps.
And those concrete blocks are propping up the rebar or the metal
Okay.
frame.
Now I get it.
If you need to do something like this, we suggest 10 gauge fencing. It comes on a roll.
I've seen
and
it,
You
yeah.
you can get it at any big box store. 10 gauge wire fencing. It's usually welded, and you don't have to worry about rusting or anything like that, because once it's encased in the concrete, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll always see rebar sitting along the side of a highway that's getting poured concrete and it's all rusty. They don't
Yeah,
really care.
They don't care.
So what you have then is you have your metal framework that you tie the wire to, and that will keep the wire right in the middle of your pour. So that's why that is there.
I love this image. And again, highly recommend that this gets to whomever's doing the install, because when you were talking through it on the previous slide, I was just, I couldn't quite picture it. This gives it to me 100%. Love it.
Yep. So that's the X-ray vision version of that installation plan.
And then the third application, so we've talked through asphalt and concrete. Pavers, lots of interest in pavers.
Yeah, pavers is a very, very popular
It's got a
application.
beautiful finish.
Yeah, the problem with pavers is that you need to, if you're going to be doing a driveway, usually we suggest that you heat the entire thing.
Okay.
Because with if you do tire tracks down pavers, after 4, 5, or 6 years, that area melts and freezes directly over the cables.
Yeah.
So now you may have some rutting in the area where the actual wheels go.
Interesting.
So that's something you want to look at when it comes to pavers. Most people like to do pavers in stone dust or in sand. That is not quite as stable as mortar. So
Okay.
if you said, hey, you know what, I really, really want to do tire tracks and I really, really want pavers, you would have to get the system set up like this, and then you'd have to pour mortar over the entire thing to make it all solid.
Okay, so you create that base and then do the pavers
Yeah,
over
the
it.
sand and the pavers.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's sort of like self-leveling cement for electric floor heating.
Very similar.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
So if you don't want to go to the expense of all that mortar that you would normally not have to install, then we would suggest you heat the entire area. If you need to stabilize the entire area and you just want tire tracks, this layer must be mortar, not sand or stone dust.
That's brilliant. Okay.
The most important thing with pavers is that they're not too thick. The further away the wire gets from the surface, the less it's going to melt, the cooler it will be, the longer it will take to heat up. So obviously a paver that's this thick is going to heat much faster than a paver that's that thick.
And I guess you could geo-target it if you're in Illinois, make sure it's not any thicker than 2.5 inches. But if you're in,
what we prefer to do is work on the spacing of the cable, not the thickness of the
okay,
paver.
that's smart.
So that's what we would prefer to do there. So the hard and fast rule is 2.5 should be your maximum. Beyond that, we just can't guarantee that you're going to be satisfied with the rate that it melts at.
Okay.
We know that at 2.5 inches, it works great.
Okay.
So one thing you have to watch out for when you're using sand as that layer, when you put the pavers on, you want to make sure the paver doesn't sit directly on the cable. The cable should be encased in that sand layer.
It's got to be embedded.
The last thing you want to do is have your guy carrying 10 of these pavers and he drops one before it's covered with sand.
Potentially damaging the cable.
Correct. So
Okay.
you never want to drop these big heavy pavers
Yeah.
directly on the cable.
That makes sense. Again, back to the testing, even during, because
Yep.
things like that could happen.
Right. So what you do is you would test it before you put it in. Now that it's installed like this, you test it again to make
Right.
sure everything is good to put over it. Then you put the product over the top. And then at the final is you test it again to make sure.
Yeah.
Then you
Hand that
move on
over
to the next.
hand that over to the homeowner at the end of the day, and everything's functioning.
Yep.
Here's proof.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that. All right. What am I looking at here?
This is complete
Coverage.
complete coverage. Yeah. And it is part of a patio area
Okay.
that was done. And it shows you how the same product has been used. It's mats.
Nice.
Rolls. Both of the rolls starting in the same place because there's the junction box.
Yeah, I see.
And so that's how it's done. Cut and turn, and then the same thing here, cut and turn, cut and turn, cut and turn.
And again, not horrible in terms of how much it costs to operate, a little over $1 per hour, but great coverage. I like that shape. I like that L shape.
Awesome.
All right. And then walk us through it
So-
beginning to end.
If you've ever had pavers installed, you know they start with gravel and you know they're out there compacting it. It depends on how long they have to make the area and how how stable the ground is below it. The bigger it is, the deeper they like to go. So they're going to have that gravel. It's going to be there, and it's going to be a crushed gravel. It's going to be compressed. And then you are going to put the mats, if you're using loose cable, like is shown here, you'd want to have rebar there to attach the cable to, because you can't just strew it out, just haphazardly and put it out there. So if you're using cable, you want to cut it to these, or not cut it, but attach it with cable ties to the rebar.
And I know occasionally we get asked the question, can I just put it in the gravel? And the answer is,
if you're putting it in gravel, like a gravel driveway, absolutely not.
Exactly.
So you need to have a solid surface above it.
Yeah.
So the National Electric Code does require that, because if you started with 2 inches of gravel on a brand new driveway, eventually 3 years later, that gravel where your tires go is now 0 inches thick, and now you're going to have exposed cable. That's why you just can't do gravel. But here's our cable attached to the rebar. And then we have the finished mortar, sand, or stone dust, 1 inch to 1.5 inches thick.
Okay.
And then you have the pavers. So if you have mortar here, you want to have enough sand on top just to set it.
Okay. And the difference between 1 and 1.5 inch?
The thinner it is, the faster it'll heat.
Okay. I like that. So if you're in a colder climate, try and get it within that 1 inch. Okay. All right. So next, that's it for snow melt and de-icing. Any questions out there? We can also answer questions at the end. Did we get anything else in advance on snow melt?
We did. Putting a system on outdoor covered stairs or handicapped ramp.
You want to talk about that real quick?
That is our system. Our cables have to be embedded, right?
Always.
So they have to be embedded in concrete or asphalt or under pavers. If you have an existing metal stairway, if you have an existing metal ramp, we can't heat those.
Okay.
That's where you'd want to buy a heating pad that sits on top, like a rubber mat. And then that would allow you to go over that.
So there are solutions out there. It's not an embedded solution, so it would not be our product line.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So roof and gutter de-icing. We've been doing this almost as long as snow melt. Talk about how this is different.
Well, I can tell you that the front of my house had to be removed and the door had to be removed, because if you look at this drawing, this whole area was rotten because I had no way for the melting water to get down to the ground. So what it does is it gets down to the gutter and it's frozen. Then it goes back up under the asphalt shingles, and then it goes and runs into your bedroom or into your front room. What's it called? Water damming or ice damming.
Ice damming. And I guess that lip, if you will, under that can get very cold. Is that right? Right.
If you're not insulated correctly, this can be, what happens is this is actually the heat coming from your uninsulated, your poorly insulated room. It gets up there and it melts the snow when it shouldn't. So what happens is, the most important thing when it comes to roof and gutter systems is that you're simply providing a way for that melting water that's already melting anyway.
Yes.
You're providing it a way to get from your roof to the ground.
So a pathway.
That's the most important thing. You can think, and a lot of the reason I'm saying this, because a lot of people I talk to don't think of it that way. I just want to melt I don't want any snow.
I just don't want any icicles, or I just don't want the snow.
Right. It's what you're really doing. The root of the whole thing is you're getting that water from there down to the ground.
Okay.
That's the most important thing.
And because the more it lingers on that roof,
it goes back up under the roof.
Causing the damage.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Good overview. Let's talk it through in terms of install.
There are two different kinds of wires. One of them is cut to length self-regulating, which is the industry standard. It's what most people use because it uses the least amount of power. But where it's needed, it can ramp up in power. So you may have a cable that's 5 watts per linear foot that's in the dry air. When you cover it with ice, when you cover it with snow, it will then go from 5 watts, and where that snow is, it'll go up to 8 to 10 watts per linear foot.
And that's the self-regulating part. It knows that it needs more amps, more watts. So it will increase.
And that's why those wires can actually overlap and touch each other. Because it's already warm there, it's not going to burn because it's going to use hardly any power. So that's where you can run it up and down and over, and if it makes a connection or if it touches each other, it's not the end of the world. But constant wattage cable is the same watts per linear foot all of the time.
Right.
If that wire touches each other, it'll burn out in that spot.
I see.
So that's why constant wattage is less expensive to make. So the kits that you will see that are plug-in type kits that you can get on, we sell some, or a big box store, that is usually 9 times out of 10 constant wattage.
Because it's inexpensive.
Because it's inexpensive. It's something you just plug in, you can run it and do its job.
So tell me this, are there specific applications where you would say always do self-regulating and the same for constant wattage? Do you separate them somehow by application type?
Well, if you have to run cable down, see, like here we can see this gutter runs down to a downspout.
Right.
Okay. Sometimes on long runs, there's a downspout here. Then there's a downspout here. We call a mid-run downspout because this may be 100 feet long. So there may be a downspout here and then a downspout over here. Well, when you run a downspout in the middle of a run, so not this one, because the cable goes, I'll just do a quick trace.
Let's walk through it. Yeah.
It goes up and up here, and then it comes down and then goes in the gutter.
Across the gutter. Okay.
And then goes down to
it's actually in the downspout, correct?
Yeah. So if we were to do this and we were going to put it down, and we're going all the way through here and it comes to a mid-run downspout, the cable then has to run down and then it has to run back up to get to the next spot.
Okay.
That's where you definitely don't want those cables, constant wattage cables, going into the same spot.
So that's the application for self-regulating.
Yes, you definitely want, with a single run, it's not a big deal.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it's not going to touch another cable.
It's just gonna go down.
Right.
Okay.
So that's something you want to look out for. If you're ever going to run the cable in close proximity where it might touch, that's definitely always going to be self-regulating.
Okay.
What's so great about self-regulating is, though, an electrician can buy it by the spool and put it on their truck and simply go out there and measure, okay, I need 100 feet here. So they cut off 100 feet.
Yep.
They put it up, they terminate the end, and they put the power connection on the front.
Yeah.
It's very, very flexible. You can run it up every single amp of a breaker. So a 20 amp breaker, you can have so many linear feet.
Right.
A 30 amp breaker, you can have so many linear feet.
And we design that for them.
Yeah, exactly. We'll tell you, all right, you have 500 feet, you need 2 circuits.
Yeah.
Or you need 600 feet, you may need 3 circuits or whatever. But there's a limited number. You can go from 0 feet up to a certain number and fit that on a certain breaker. And it doesn't matter in between, and you can cut it wherever you want to.
So are we showing a plan for roof and gutters?
That's a great question. I think this is kind of like our plan because they're all so different. I
Cool.
don't think we had one.
Right. And so if you're sending in a plan, the things you want to know is, of
Oh,
course.
we're going to show you this.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you.
It's like you almost had this plan.
Right. So what's important to know when someone sends in a plan?
They need to measure.
They need to measure twice.
Right. And
Okay.
once again, with a self-regulating cable, if you have a little too much, hey, that's okay. You can cut it off
But not
and terminate
with
it.
constant wattage.
With constant wattage, you can never, ever shorten or lengthen the cable.
Because then the watts per square foot
Changes and it can overheat and fail.
Exactly. Or underheat and just not give you the result you want.
Right.
So you are measuring, let's just start with A.
Yeah. Overhang. That's the area here to here. We need to know that number.
Because
Okay.
it gets very cold there.
Yep. So we need to make sure that that triangle goes up far enough that it covers that A distance.
Oh, interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. I didn't know that.
So that's what that is. That tells you how high the triangles are.
Okay.
So that's letter A.
hmm
Letter B is the length of the roof and the gutter. So that's all this length
Right.
here to here. Okay.
And down.
Nope.
No,
That was
not
C.
yet. That's C. Well, let's talk about B real quick. Do I have to cover all 4 areas of my roof?
You don't have to. No.
No. So,
The most important, you would never put triangles up without something being in the gutter,
okay.
but you can put it in the gutter without putting the triangles on.
Okay. That sounds like a puzzle to me.
Because remember, a part of my house had to be removed to put this, and I put this cable up so it wouldn't happen again.
Mhm.
It's simply in my gutter.
Huh. Okay.
So that thing, I'll open the door, I'll look at the control. Oh, it's on today, because it's completely automated. When there's snow or ice sitting in that gutter and it's below 38 degrees, that thing is on.
So you don't have it on the roof at all. It's just running the length of the gutter
Mhm.
and then onto C.
Yes. Then we need to know the downspout length. So if we have this downspout length, remember we talked about mid-run
Yes.
downspouts as opposed to end run or beginning run?
So that would be good to notate.
Yeah, because if this were, let's say that this cable was running like this, over here, down the downspout and then back up again. If that's 10
Constant.
feet, it's really 20 feet of cable.
Right.
10
okay.
feet down, 10 feet back up, then this distance, then this distance. And if this is the downspout that's going to be the end run, it just is the distance down to the bottom.
So we need to know which one is the end run, ideally.
Yep.
Okay.
And where the power is coming from, because of the power box is going to be here.
So you want to start and end there.
Right.
Okay. Excellent. E is 2/3 up the valley.
Yeah. So if you've had most people there, a lot of people have valleys in their roof.
Yeah.
You don't go all the way up to the top. You just go 2/3 of the way.
Why is that?
That's just to get the best results because you're running it up and then you're running it back down. That creates, because you have to remember, it's kind of like a trough there, and that water comes down and you don't want it to freeze in that V. You want to keep that V melted
Clear.
to get it down to that gutter, which is then going to get it to the ground.
Okay. And
Because
then,
it tends to drain like this direction. It goes this way all the way down and the same way here.
right.
So you've got to give this a path to get it down there.
Smart. Okay. And then the distance from roof edge, F, and width for any special like skylights, anything like that.
Yeah, because you have to go up. A lot of times you want to go around there. So we need to know the distance from here to here, because that's got to all be figured in. So then you take this amount, this amount, this amount, this amount, and then down. So we need to remember, it's what we suggest to some people is if they have clips, let's say that they are redoing theirs. Their system is 20 years old and the cable's not working as well as it used to. Self-regulating cable eventually degrades, and if it's a 5-watt cable, it just stays at 5 watts.
Okay. So
It won't ramp up like it used to. So if that's the case and we don't know, and they bought it from somewhere else, they don't know the cable length, what they can literally do is they can take a rope. They can buy a real cheap rope somewhere and just do all these runs and measure them.
smart.
Install it
That's
in
a
the
great
clips.
tip.
Install it in the clips. Then when you're all done, cut it off, and then you measure the length of that rope. That's the amount of cable you need to redo an existing system.
Have any of your our customers actually done that?
Yes.
That is brilliant.
Yep.
Well done.
And that's not for new ones because
Yeah.
you don't have the clips already.
Mhm.
But if you have an old one, you open the clip up, you pull the old cable out. You can then run the rope through there,
Yeah.
and then you know what's going on.
And bottom line, send us a plan. We'll walk through it with you. We'll design it. We'll make sure all of these A through E, are really taken into consideration. Because a lot of people aren't thinking about. I wouldn't think to do my skylight, or
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
good that the team's there to help people through the process.
Yeah, and you definitely want to get rid of that snow as it hits at the top of the skylight because you don't want to build up there. So that's what you want to think about too. So we have a roof and gutter form that you can fill out.
Mhm.
And then what we'll do is sometimes people will also send us a Google Earth image of the top of their house. And then we can kind of see how their numbers add up to what's there. But someone somewhere is going to have to measure that. That's the one thing you have to do with this product is you have to measure.
Good. Great. That's a great overview. Okay, so different types of roofs. Asphalt shingle, I guess, is one type, and probably the most common. But then there are people out there that have metal roofs, and there are different ways to adhere the product to those roofs. So,
Actually, what it does is it uses the same way that you do an asphalt with a metal clip and a stick and a sticky pad.
right?
That's both sides, a double-sided foam tape. So what this does is instead of doing triangles, it literally, here it hits the first clip, second clip, third clip, fourth clip, fifth clip.
So the real difference isn't the type of clip;
It's the placement.
it's the placement.
There are no triangles here. It's up, over the seam, and down. Across, up, over the seam, and down. Up, over the seam, and down, et cetera, and then it works its
goes
way.
down.
Yeah.
What's the triangle at the top there?
I don't know what that is representing, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, we're going to have
It's
to modify that
Possibly,
document.
possibly it's going around an obstruction. So it would show
I
you how
see.
to work around an obstruction. So that's possibly what's going on here. Maybe a small window or a protrusion or whatever.
Got-
That's where you just put the clip above that area to get around it.
Okay, smart. That helps. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to talk about in terms of different roof types?
No, it's pretty. We have an installation manual online that's really good. It shows you how the the different roofs work.
Mhm.
So I would just suggest just taking a look at
Walking
that.
through that. But
Yeah.
in your experience, what are the most common roof types that people
Asphalt shingle.
asphalt
Yeah.
shingle?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. And then the final portion of the presentation today, which is pipe freeze protection. I would never even think to have this in my home.
Well, you wouldn't think about it until one of your pipes burst,
Yeah.
and it does happen.
And especially like when people are away on vacation, cold temperatures,
Mhm.
maybe the temperature in the home has been lowered.
Or it's
Um,
against a wall that's poorly insulated, and that pipe is here and the wall's here, and that 1 or 2 inch space there actually
Mhm.
freezes the cable,
Yeah.
freezes the pipe there. So yeah, there's a bunch of different things that you can do with this, and we're going to show you a real simple setup. This is once again a real simple thing to do. You can buy this in self-regulating. You can also do there are some inexpensive constant wattage
Mhm.
that are like 10 feet long or whatever. But what we're just going to kind of do is kind of show you examples of real life, what it's going to probably look like at your house.
Okay. Walk me through it.
So what it does is the self-regulating is used commercially. Self-regulating is always used for this 99 times out of 100 because you can get different wattages.
Right.
Some of them are hotter than others.
You don't have to worry about the length of it. You know, it adapts.
And you can cut it to length. That's the
Right.
great thing about self-regulating.
And so talk about that picture. What are people looking at?
They are looking at a valve,
Mhm.
and you have to take the linear footage of a pipe, but you have to figure it's got to go up and around a valve.
Mhm.
So whenever we send you, we're going to send you a form that says, how long are your pipes? How many hangers are there that we have to work around? How many
Mhm.
valves are in this?
What's a hanger?
A hanger is a pipe that runs this way below a surface. So it's got a hanger that goes around it that holds it up, like those right up there. Those
Gotcha.
are pipe hangers.
Okay.
You can't see that. Everybody just pretend that oh yeah, that looks
Oh, yeah,
great.
uh-huh, got it.
So those are, you have to work your way around it, and that takes up linear footage.
Okay.
So every valve takes a foot at least. So we need to know if you've got 10 valves, you're going to use 10 more feet of cable than you would if you had 0 valves.
Okay. So
So
you need length, number of valves.
type of insulation, what type the pipe is it metal, is it plastic, the diameter of the pipe, how thick your insulation is. That's all on the request form that you just fill out and you tell us
Nice.
what it is.
And again, we design it based on that.
Yeah, so we'll give you 5-watt cable, 6-watt cable, 8-watt cable, 10-watt cable, whatever it needs to make sure that that pipe doesn't freeze.
Cool. I like it. And is this representing how it's installed?
Yes.
Okay.
When you put this in, make sure all the piping is dry. If
How
you
do you
have,
do that?
well, if you have a pipe that's wet, it tells you that you probably have a problem.
Yeah, you got a
and-
humidity issue somewhere.
or it's a leak and you need to get
Oh,
that taken
that's
care
a
of
serious
first.
issue.
Right. So you need to make sure that that's taken care of first. And then you need to make sure that the cable's 10 inches away from combustible surfaces. You need to provide an extra 1 foot of cable when you're figuring this out to get it for splices or getting it to the power spot. And the number one thing that I see, you go onto YouTube and you see these people spiraling the cable
Right.
around the pipe.
More is better.
Yeah, you don't need to.
You don't need to.
You need to make sure the water flows. And usually the water is always in the bottom third of a pipe.
Okay.
It's not on the top third, it's in the bottom third.
Smart.
So that's why if you do a single run, it's always the cable at 8 o'clock on the face of a clock.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a digital, if you're used to taking time digitally, I can't help you with that. But if you're old school, you know what 8 o'clock is on the face of a watch. That's usually where it is. If you need to double up, if you say you need to get down there and back to get
Right.
to another one, then it would go at 8 o'clock first, and then on the way back, it would be 4 o'clock.
And if you lived in a colder climate, would you always do an 8 and 4 o'clock?
You might have to, depends on how many watts. Your sheet is going to tell us how many watts you need.
Okay.
So if you need a double run, then there's how you increase your wattage.
Okay.
So that you're going to tell us what you need, and we'll say you need a single run or 2 runs, or it's just simply to get from one point over to another, you have to do it down and back and over.
I see. Good
So-
tips.
So that's how you can save, because spiraling takes a lot of cable.
Yeah.
You don't need to use all that cable. I think those people are interested in selling cable by the linear foot that you really don't need to. But
Okay.
always remember the water or whatever that is in that pipe is going to be in the lower half 9 times out of 10.
So don't over engineer
Right,
it.
exactly.
Okay. So that's it?
Yeah, it's really simple concept. You see the kits are everywhere. The problem with kits is they have to be a specific length. And sometimes if you have a constant wattage cable on that pipe, if they get too close or whatever, remember, they don't regulate the heat. They're just a certain temperature all the time.
And they can burn out.
Yeah.
You have to be careful about that.
Yep.
And that's why you do recommend that you keep them at least how many inches apart?
Well, yeah, this is going to always keep them safe. Usually it's probably about 2 to 3 inches away from
Okay.
each other. So that's it. But it's a really simple concept. We just need to know, as I said, linear footage. I mean, it's all there written for you. You just look and go, that's what it is. That's what it is. There's 1, 2, 3 valves. Boom. You just write it down and we do the rest.
Nice. Well, that was a lot of information. So we're here. We'd be happy to take any questions. This is recorded. So we'll send you a copy of that. You'll be able to review it because it's a lot to digest at once.
Right.
But let's.
One thing before we leave is if you have any questions about this, we have a lot of these videos on our website.
True.
So you can go to the video section of WarmlyYours.com and you can take a look, and these are all, you'll see what each one is about. There's, there's a video about pipe trace. There's a video that we did actually at my house up in the gutter where we show how it gets installed. So there's how to terminate it, all that stuff. We got lots of great videos.
Yeah. Or they could simply just call our tech team, and Christmas morning is a perfect time to do that.
Yeah. If your video player quits working, you have to get the VHS tape out, and you're probably going to get a new VCR for Christmas anyway.
Yay. All right. So let's talk about, we do this once a month. And so we'll be back the second Thursday of January. We're going to be just doing a Ask Our Radiant Experts Anything, and we'll have an expert here. We do that because we're all going to be feasting over the holidays, so we won't have time to put in together, a long format webinar. We're just going to open it up for discussion, and I like that. We'll have a few things prepared, but
we always like for you to give us ideas, and we'd much rather talk about something you're interested in than something we just say, hey, we haven't talked about this for a while. Let's talk about it.
Right. So yeah, join us for that. Should be fun. And other than that, we do have daily, daily, not webinars, but what do we call them? Q&As we do every day, twice a day, some days. Join us for one of those, because those can be really personal. A lot of times it's just one-on-one or a small group, and you really can talk very detailed about your application, not general terms, which is what we kind of do on these webinars, but real nitty gritty details.
Yeah. And it's a purely interactive too. You have a question, you type it in, we answer it, and we move on through there.
All righty. We always like to talk about what's coming up in terms of promotions. Our Environ product is being promoted throughout the holidays. If you have any areas with floating wood, laminate, carpet, this is the product for you. It's 20% off in December. So check that out. It's a great holiday gift.
Yeah. Make sure it's laminate or floating wood in Canada. Carpet in the USA.
All right. And again, you've already mentioned it. We value your feedback. We will be sending a survey. Be detailed. Tell us, one, what you think, two, what you want to learn about, and we'll actually do it.
Yep.
We're those kind of people.
Let us know what you want to talk about. I'd rather talk about something that you're interested in. And that definitely helps us prepare too.
Yeah. All righty. And then the buck does stop here. I get a lot of personal emails. jbillen@warmlyyours.com. I am the owner here. I am literally 24/7. You can email me anytime, evenings and weekends, and I will respond.
And I get a lot of the info at warmlyyours.com and some of the J Billens too.
Oh, nice.
So
Thank you.
whenever I need to help out. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us whenever you would like. And we're on the internet, and our toll-free number works 24/7. So give us a call.
Absolutely. And then until next time,
stay warm
and be radiant. Thank you
Bye,
guys
everybody.
for joining us today. Jazz hands?
Bye.
That was cool. And I just hit the mic.
I got to turn this on. There we go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.